What is hypothermia? It is when your body temperature drops below 95 degrees. How do you know that you have hypothermia? Well, some symptoms are that you could be having uncontrollable shivering, which means that you're shaking around a little bit. There's also the umbles, which means that you're stumbling around, or you're fumbling around, or you're mumbling a little bit. Ways of preventing hypothermia is making sure that you're staying active, doing stuff throughout the day, that you are drinking plenty of water, that you are also eating all the food that we give you, because you want to take in a lot of calories because your body is going to try to be staying warm, so you want to burn all those calories. And making sure that you're managing your layers. What are some ways to treat hypothermia? Well, if you're in any wet clothes that are making you cold, you want to get out of those. So say if pants get wet, you want to change those, get a new nice dry pair. If you want to get into the warmth to try to warm up in a warm area or back inside, you want to drink nice warm liquids. You also want to eat nice high energy foods. You also want to make sure that you're still moving around throughout the day. So like say if you're starting to get a little cold, make sure you take a quick run to exercise. And then you also want to put on, say if you're getting colder, make sure you put on those nice layers. So if you already have taken off your jacket throughout the day, put it back on if you start getting cold as it gets later in the night.
What is dehydration? Dehydration is when your body has less water than what it needs to maintain homeostasis. Some signs and symptoms of dehydration include dizziness, headache, or thirst. What I always like to say is if you're thirsty, you're already dehydrated. Some methods of prevention for dehydration is to drink water gradually throughout the day rather than drinking a lot at one point in time because you might make yourself sick in doing so. So if you continue to drink water and fluids throughout the day, that'll help you maintain your hydration and keep you healthy and keep you warm. At Snowbase, we give you these fancy water bottles, and our guides like to have a lot of mandatory water breaks to help you guys drink at least 6 to 8 of these in a day to help maintain your hydration.
What is frostbite? Well, frostbite is when your skin actually starts to freeze. It can be a pretty painful thing, so it's best to avoid it. How to avoid frostbite? Well, the easiest way to avoid frostbite is to make sure you cover all exposed skin. Also, staying hydrated is important. If your blood isn't flowing throughout your body, your outer body parts are going to get colder and you are more likely to get frostbite. So staying hydrated is important. And along that fact, your body is going to need energy. So you need to make sure you're eating enough food. That way your body produces more heat and it will help keep you warmer. How do we treat frostbite? Well, first let's talk about what not to do. A common thing you might see people try and do when their hands get cold is they start rubbing them together like this. We don't actually want to do this because what happens is, remember what I said before, your skin is freezing. Well, little tiny crystals are starting to form of ice inside your skin. And if you rub them back and forth like that, those ice crystals are sharp and they're going to actually start to tear apart your skin cells and it's going to make it worse. So we don't want to do that. How you actually want to treat it is, first of all, you want to get it warm. If you're on trail, the easiest way to do that, put some mittens on your hands because your hands are probably the most likely ones to get frostbite, or change your socks to dry socks inside your boots. Keep your feet warm. If that's not working, take your hands, put them in your armpits like this, and that will help warm them up. A good way to prevent it also is using the buddy system. Your buddies can look at your face and see that your skin might be a different color, and they can alert you to this, and then you can get it treated right away. All right, let's talk about the different stages of frostbite. First degree frostbite is the mildest form. That is when the outer layer of skin is freezing, and your skin might turn a red color, and this one is the one that can be easily treated on trail. This is the earliest stage. If you catch it right away, cover it back up with either a mitten or your jacket or whatever skin is exposed, get that covered up. And if it comes to it, you might have to take other measures to warm it up, but it can be dealt with on the trail. Second degree frostbite is when your skin and all the way down to the muscle tissue has become frozen. This is a little bit more severe. This is when you're going to want to get off the trail and go back to talk to our health officer, and they will take care of you there. Third degree frostbite is an extreme case. This is when you've ignored all the warning signs and your skin and muscle tissue have frozen even more than second degree. This is usually accompanied by a change in skin color. It will turn darker in color, and at this point you could potentially start losing fingers. So our staff are well trained to look for this, so it shouldn't be an issue, but it's something to be aware of.
We follow a different buddy system at Snowbase than you would typically throughout the summer, where we always have one buddy that we keep an eye on throughout the day when you're with your group. And then if you ever need to venture off from the group for any reason, make sure you notify your guide, tell them where you're going and what time you expect to be back, and you should have at least 4 people total, including 1 adult. So we have a few rules regarding building fires at Snowbase. The first one being that you shouldn't ever have a fire in a building or a shelter. Our shelters are built out of snow or fabric in most cases. Those are not compatible with fire. But you can have a fire, you just need to make sure that it's built on a designated fire pan and that you use the fire properly for things like cooking, rather than drying out your shoes or your socks or potentially trying to stay warm. If you have wet gear, make sure you tell your guide and they will get you dry gear. That's not a good way to dry out your clothes. Venturing out onto a frozen lake can be a great activity to do during the winter. It can be a really fun way to go skiing, fishing, or just exploring, but no ice is ever completely safe. So there are a couple things to keep in mind. So when in doubt, always err on the side of caution and go around a lake if you don't feel it's safe. Always avoid marshy areas or any areas that seem slushy, and always avoid the ice at the very beginning and the end of the winter to avoid any thin ice or melting. The Department of Natural Resources recommends that you don't travel on ice that's less than 4 inches thick. So because of this reason, we are going to check the ice every weekend, and the first person to travel onto the ice will check it and radio into base to make sure it's safe. This is how we will communicate with all of our guides, so everyone knows that the ice is safe before traveling. When you arrive at Snowbase for the weekend, you will sit down with your guide and you will create a trip plan. Please do not deviate from that trip plan, and if you plan to, have your guide radio base and let us know how you're going to deviate so we can keep track of everyone for the weekend and make sure everyone stays safe.
Here at Snowbase, we provide a bunch of different gear for you guys to use throughout the weekend. To start off with, we have this wool hat, which has a nice fleece lining on the inside. Secondly, we have this fleece hat. This is what you wear when you go to sleep at night, so you have a dry, warm hat to wear to bed. Along with that, we have a balaclava. This should be worn underneath your hat, goes over your head, and your eyes see through this. This is made out of fleece. To start off with our hands, we have our poly gloves, and over our poly gloves, we have a fleece warmth layer. And on top of our fleece warmth layer, we have these canvas mitten shells that have a leather palm to them. We have these water bottles that have a lanyard on them so they can go around your neck, and it gets tucked inside of your coat so that it doesn't freeze throughout the day and you always have drinking water right on your person. We have 2 pairs of socks. You'll get a second pair of wool socks. This is the poly base layer, and then the wool socks will go over the top. We'll give you the second pair so you can change throughout the day if needed or put on a fresh pair in the morning. We have our big Sorel boots. These have removable wool liners. So there's 1 pair in here, and then there's 1 pair that's a spare that you can put on in the morning when you wake up, or if you need to change them throughout the day. We have our suspenders and our wool pants. These are your warmth layers that'll go over your base layer, and then these help keep them up. We also have a couple options for our warmth layer. We have our fleece jacket, which is a zip up, and then we have our wool pullover fleece. We also have these Whisper Light stoves to use throughout the day for cooking and other means of heating up water. In addition to our stoves that we provide, we will also provide the utensils and the pots and the pans needed to make your meals throughout the day. So to help you get around camp for the weekend, we also provide snowshoes and cross-country skis. These fit right over the boots that you already have on, using straps in the front and a strap that goes around your ankle. and these will help you stay on top of the snow rather than sinking into the snow while you're traveling. We also provide mummy-style sleeping bags that are rated up to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. You won't be responsible for bringing any food for the weekend. We will provide all of your meals and any snacks that you will need throughout the day.
So we just covered the things that we will supply you at Snow Base. Now I'm going to cover the things that we recommend you bring to Snow Base. So first thing we have is a pocket knife. A pocket knife is an awesome utility tool that can be used in plenty of situations. It's never a bad idea to have one. Next, light sources. Headgear is recommended, but if you can't grab headgear, handheld always works. You're going to be doing a lot of things at Snow Base with your hands, so it's always good to have a headlamp. So at Snow Base, it can be very sunny with the light being reflected off the snow. So eye protection is always recommended. A good pair of sunglasses will protect you from light bouncing off the snow. It's awesome. Next, skin. Sunscreen is always very important to bring to Snow Base because, believe it or not, even though it is cold out, the sun can really sunburn you. Next, we have chapstick. So your lips are very easily sunburned, so keeping them moisturized is always an awesome idea. Next, we have our mess kits. Please bring plastic mess kits. So that means a bowl, a cup, and a utensil. Do not bring metal because metal tends to stick to the skin when cold. So next we have our underlayers. So 2 tops and 2 bottoms. These are your long underwear. Make sure they're made out of polyester or wool. We do not want anything cotton. Cotton kills. All right, next is our warmth layer, made out of polar fleece, wool, or down. So this is down right here. We have wool and then fleece. So please bring 2 to 3 top warmth layers and then 1 to 2 bottom warmth layers. All right. Next we have our winter jackets. So these are your wind and water layers. These protect against the environment. Please bring at least 1 of these. All right. Next we have our pillow. This is not required, but if you would like to be a little more comfortable in your quinsy or your sleeping area, pillow is always a great thing to have. Make sure it's nice, compact, and portable. So we do supply wool pants to keep you warm on your bottom half, and on your top half we do have shell layers. So if you would like to bring your own gear, go ahead and do that, but we also will supply you if need be.
Outside in the wintertime, there's lots of different ways that your body can lose heat. And the first step in not losing that heat is learning how your body can potentially lose heat. One of the first and easiest ways that's most visible to you is through respiration. When you're outside, you're breathing in cool, dry, cold air. And then every single time that you exhale, you are breathing out warm, moist air. And you're doing this all day long. And this is a continuous way where you're breathing in cold air, you're exhaling warm air. So you're bringing cold in and you're letting warm air leave. And you're going to constantly be losing body temperature throughout the day. And that's fine. You're going to be eating, you're going to be moving, and you can combat that easily. Well, we certainly don't want you to stop breathing throughout the day. That would not lead for a really good time at our winter camps. Another way that your body can lose heat is through conduction. This is through touch. So this is you sitting in a snowbank, your feet on the ground when you're walking across a cold frozen lake. There's lots of ways you can combat this. Your boots are insulated. They've got a foam padding in the bottom. You can stand on a foam pad. You can sit on your pack or on your sled to prevent you from sitting in the cold. But this is direct contact of the environment around you that is colder. And so your warm body is slowly transferring heat to those surfaces. And you want to limit that interaction with those cold surfaces as much as possible. So whenever you can, sit or stand on something that's foam or something that is not snow or ice or something that is significantly colder than you are. Another form is through convection, and we see this the most in the wind. When you're moving out in the environment, the air is circulating around you. It might be being blown in from a northwestern wind, or it might just be created by you walking through the environment. Air is going to naturally circulate around your body, and this cold air is going to slowly exchange warm air inside your layers. And so you want to keep those layers protected through your wind layer. And that's going to keep you in a nice little shell and keep your warm air close to your body and keep the cold air outside, similar to your house. And so you want to preserve that shell layer to prevent the wind from penetrating your layers and removing any warm air that you might have. You'll also see this where if you're standing next to a cold window or another cold piece, you'll see air circulate between you and that cold object slowly, and this is just a natural way of losing heat. It's nothing to be worried about, but it's certainly something to know about and be aware of throughout the day. It's not easy to avoid natural convection, but you can certainly slow it down by preserving that shell layer. Radiation. We see this every day by collecting heat from the sun, and just like the sun, we are radiating heat out. Stoves and heaters and furnaces, they're all radiating heat out. And we are like those stoves and furnaces in that we radiate heat away from our bodies. And this is an invisible radiation. You can feel this when you're standing close to somebody else, or you're standing close to a furnace, or when you're standing open in the sun. You feel that radiation. This can be blocked by reflective materials or other surfaces, and so you want to be mindful of that when you are around really cold items, that you will be radiating heat away. Once again, nothing to be worried about, but certainly something to be aware of as you go through your winter camping experience. Evaporation. This is the process of when your sweat or any other water evaporates from your body and turns into water vapor and goes away from your body. In this process, it will release energy and take that energy away from the surface of that water, and this will cause a cooling effect near your body. You want to avoid this as much as possible by limiting your activity and preventing any sweating or perspiration that may occur. Of course, it's not completely unavoidable, but you want to limit it as much as possible. As those things evaporate, it's going to release energy from your body and make you colder.
Snow is a thief. Snow can be a thief in multiple different ways. Whether it be when you're making contact with the ground, when you're sitting, kneeling, or laying down, you want to make sure that you have either a shorty pad or a butt pad in between you if you're kneeling or sitting on the ground. Or when you're laying on the ground, you want to make sure that you have a nice sleeping pad. Just because you don't want to make any direct contact with the snow because it will suck up your heat. Other ways that snow can be a thief is that it can steal your gear. So if you leave your gear laying out in random spots, and then say you go to bed and it snows overnight, all your gear is buried then. So you always just want to have a designated spot, whether it be your cruise sled or just like a spot in your campsite where your gear, or if you're going to set down any gear, it's going to be staying there. You can also lose the gear that you're wearing throughout the day because you're going to want to take it off to regulate your body temperature. So like your gloves or your hat, what I'll generally do is put it in my pocket or just a designated spot, because if you just set it down in the snow, you could just lose it because you're not going to be able to find the spot that it's at, or you might just get it mixed up with your friends. The qualifications for the Zero Hero Award include, it has to be in a 24-hour period that you are outside. It has to drop to 0 degrees Fahrenheit. You need to stay in a temporary shelter. You cannot use any auxiliary heating sources. You need to cook 2 meals on a camp stove, and it needs to be a planned camp out.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the 3 W's of layering for winter camping. The first W is the wicking layer, as you can see modeled here. The wicking layer is either a synthetic material such as polypropylene, or it could be wool or even silk. The important thing is this is a lighter layer. It is meant to absorb water and bring it away from your body. The wicking layer is what we call hydrophobic. Let's talk about hydrophobic and hydrophilic really quick. So hydrophobic, that means the material does not like water. So an example we like to talk about is wool. Where does wool come from? It comes from sheep. Sheep, do you think sheep like being wet? Of course not. Sheep don't like being wet. They want to stay dry. So if it's raining and a sheep's out there, they've developed a coat that can wick moisture away from their body. That is wool. And that is why wool is an excellent material to wear for winter camping. Or, in our case, we've developed synthetic materials that do the same thing, like modeled here. Now, one thing we don't want to see on trail is cotton. And the big offender that I see a lot of people wearing are cotton socks. And if you may notice, these look like they're white socks, but they are actually polypropylene. So these will wick away the moisture, whereas cotton, remember, we talked about wool. Wool comes from sheep who don't like getting wet. Where does cotton come from? It comes from a plant. Plants love water. They want to soak it all up. Well, we don't want that because it's going to hold on to all that moisture and hold it against our skin, and it's going to be harder to keep warm that way. So Make sure that when we go on trail, we don't have any cotton. Another thing you may notice, our model is wearing gloves. These are poly gloves. They are an excellent way to help wick moisture away from your hands, and you can wear these inside either your mittens or other gloves. Second W is the warmth layer. As you can see here, once again, we don't have any cotton visible. Wool is what the sweater he's wearing is made of today. It is an excellent material, as we discussed with the wicking layer. Wool is, again, hydrophobic. It doesn't want water in it. It tries to get rid of it. So that's why it can keep you warm even if you get it wet. Unlike cotton, which I'm going to remind everyone that cotton is rotten. And you may notice he has some mittens on. These are the warmth layer of the mittens. This is the inside layer of mittens that we have here at Snow Base. They are removable, so you can dry them out if you need to. But again, synthetic materials or wool are best here. All right, he's also wearing a hat. This one looks to be a knit hat of polyester, I would guess. Polyester, polypropylene, wool, these are all fantastic materials, but once again, not cotton. And let's move on to the pants. Our model is wearing wool pants. Again, I'm going to emphasize, wool is great for keeping moisture away from you. It's not cotton, therefore not rotten. Another good strategy for the warmth layer is using multiple layers. So, if you're super cold out, you might want 2 wool sweaters or perhaps a vest on. If you get too warm, you can shed a layer. If you get cold, add another layer back on. It's brilliant. One other thing to focus on, wool socks. Again, not cotton socks. We don't want any cotton socks on trail. Cotton kills. So the third W is wind and water. And yes, I am aware that I have used 4 W's, but wind and water are basically the same thing. It's the same layer, 2 for 1 here for this one. So this layer keeps, obviously, the wind and water off. This is usually some sort of synthetic material, tightly woven, usually waterproof. This way, if it snows on you or if water gets splashed on you, it just falls off your clothes and doesn't penetrate into the inner layers of clothes, therefore keeping you dry. All right, as you can see here, he has a coat on. He has the shells for his mittens on. His boots are on. And you may notice the wool pants are the same because in this case, this one's a 2 for 1. These wool pants also have an extra liner in them that act as wind and water protection.
So here we have our sleeping bag, and now we're going to show you what it's like when it's time to get ready for bed at night. So Frank here is going to get into the sleeping bag for us. Like he took all of his gear off, and now he's going to get ready for bed for the night. So he's going to climb on in. Your feet are going to go on this end of the sleeping bag right here, and you're going to lay down. What I usually like to do is I like to take the zipper here and zip it about up to your waist. That way you can put all your other gear in the proper places that it has to go. We have all of our gear laid out here so you can see it, but you'd be in the field, you're going to be wearing it as you're getting ready for bed. So the first thing we're going to look at is we got the pants right behind Frank down there and our suspenders. There's a few different things you can do with it, but the biggest thing is make sure they're not exposed to the cold air. So what Frank is going to do is he's going to put them right under his legs. Those are just going to give him some extra leg support throughout the night and keep them nice and warm so they don't freeze for the morning. We're moving on down. We got our different gloves. We got our outer gloves right there. You can do one of 2 options with those. If you want, you can put them inside your bag, or you can also put them under you to keep those nice and toasty so they don't freeze up as well. Moving on down, we got another set. We'll put those in there just in case. We have our wool outer layer. You'll either be wearing that, or if you have another layer under that you feel comfortable sleeping in, you can again then put it under your legs or under your head for extra support. Just again, we want to make sure it stays nice and toasty and it doesn't freeze up overnight. The next thing we have is our balaclava. What you want to do with that is you will want to keep that on. It's going to keep your neck and your head nice and warm. We won't have to put them on right now, but we're going to put it inside of our sleeping bag so we can keep it nice and warm with us throughout the night. The next thing we have is our water bottle and our water bottle holder. So the first thing he's going to want to do is he's going to want to finish all the water inside of it. That way we can make sure we're nice and hydrated when we're going to bed. Look at that, finishing it.
And then what he's going to do, I like to put it in my sleeping bag, but what a lot of other people like to do is they'll sometimes put it in their boots. So it's completely up to you on which you would like to do. One thing in your sleeping bag that you will have is you will have a water bottle with heated water inside of it to keep you nice and toasty throughout the night. So it's not going to be that one, it's going to be a completely different water bottle. Moving on, we have our hats. So you're going to be taking off your day hat, which is going to be our wool hats, either the green or red one, depending on which one you prefer. And those you're going to take off for the night. You're not going to need that anymore. But what we have is our special night hat. These nice blue ones here. We're going to fold it up here so we can have it in the on position so we can still see. And Frank's going to put it on his head just like that to keep his head nice and toasty. And when he's ready for bed, what he's going to do is he's going to flip it down, and it's going to cover his ears and eyes, keeping those nice and toasty throughout the night. Lastly, we have our wicking gloves right here. We have our wicking gloves and our wicking socks are things that we're going to be switching out with a dry pair. You're going to be playing out in the snow. They're going to be getting a little bit wet throughout the day. So you're going to want to switch those out to a nice dry pair. So we're going to take the wet pair off. We'll put a new dry pair on, and you will wear them off. We'll have a separate stuff sack for you to put the wet stuff in, so you won't have to worry about that. The other big thing that you're going to switch out before you go to bed is your boot liners. We have our boots laying right there against the ground. You're going to take the wet boot liners out, put those in your sack so they can be with all the other wet stuff. And you're going to put new boot liners in so you have fresh, dry boots. Also, that way, if you have to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night, you have your boots ready to go. All right, and now that Frank's got all that done, it's time for him to go to bed. So what we're going to do is we're going to zip up the sleeping bag all the way. And this is sometimes really nice to do with a buddy because sometimes you can't get it zipped up all the way. So if you can get it zipped all the way, great. If not, you can always ask for a buddy. But then what you are going to do is I'm going to come over here so you can kind of see. Frank's got it all zipped up all the way here. And the last thing you want to do is right on this side or on one of the sides, there's going to be a little cinch down so you can squeeze it together. You don't want your entire face exposed and you don't want this giant hole with the sleeping bag. So what you're going to do is you're going to cinch it down. So it's just around your head and around your face, so all that's sticking out is your nose. You don't want your nose inside the sleeping bag because if you do that, it's going to get condensation all over the bag, and that's not going to be good because it's going to freeze and you're going to get icicles in your nose, and that's not good. But say you're in the middle of the night and you really got to go to the bathroom, all you have to do is you're going to uncinch it the best you can. You're going to unzip yourself from the bag. Help you out there. Gotta get the zipper. You'll just unzip yourself from the bag, and then you'll put your boots on, run to the bathroom, and then run back here to your sleeping bag. And then you'll just repeat the process of zipping up the bag and cinching it down. When you go to the bathroom, you do not need all your gear on. You just need your boots and your jacket. That way you can just stay nice and warm because you're running out and then running back.